What's up, guys? Today I'm going to talk to you about why the Confederate flag is not racist. And also, I'm going to tell you the truth about slavery and about the Civil War. Now, a lot of misguided people believe that the Confederate flag is a sign of slavery and violent hate against African American people. But it's actually not. They also believe that slavery is solely a Confederate Southern states thing. It is not. Now, slavery dates back maybe even 1,000, 2,000 years to when the Egyptians made the pyramids, and they used Jewish people, Jews, as slaves. Okay, so there you go. Now we've established a fact that slavery was a thing far before America was even discovered. Now, but if you're talking about African slavery, that actually started in piracy times, back in the early 1600s, when English noblemen, from what I can figure, took trips to Africa. This is apparently what the research says. Now, I went on Wikipedia. Wikipedia, I know, sometimes it's not always the most reliable source, so I went on some other articles that people who are authority on the subject of slavery and who are historians, they have written these articles, they know what they're talking about, and I did a lot of studying on this. So I'm telling you guys what I learned, and it makes sense to me. English noblemen essentially took trips to Africa, and believe it or not, it was the African people who sold a lot of their own African people into slavery. They saw money before, humanity. That's what they saw. And some of them actually really did sell some of their own people to white English noblemen, who then took these now slaves to places like Bermuda, Jamaica, Bahamas, all over that particular tropical area, where people like to take vacations nowadays. I'm not sure where that's exactly located in the world, but it's down below the equator. It doesn't matter, but yeah, that's essentially why there are African people of African descent in those places, because their families back in the day were brought over to those places and their families grew. So it was, either that the African people sold their own to white people, or the white Englishmen simply kidnapped them. Now, keep in mind, this is in the early 1600s. This is 100 years or so before America even became a country, and about 200 years before the South even became the Confederacy. So, years go by, America becomes a country in 1776. So America's officially a country. Christopher Columbus has obviously already found it, years prior. And, now America's a thing. So now they have their slaves. They probably had slaves before America even became a country. When the British were in America, before the Revolutionary War, there were probably already African slaves there, but now America is a country and it's official. Now, keep in mind, this is still 100 years before the South seceded, before Dixieland became a thing. So, skip ahead 100 years. Here's why the Civil War was not about slavery. Abraham Lincoln, who everybody thinks is this great president, is really a piece of shit. He's a tyrant. He essentially goes with Congress and says, hey, let's put taxes on everybody, so they have to give half of their goddamn income to the government. Right? Now, the South apparently didn't have a say in this, and they apparently didn't like it. So, what did they do? They went to war against the North. They went to war against the North because they were being illegally taxated on all of their goods coming out of the southern states. They went to war over that, not slavery. Keep in mind that slavery was a thing back then. It was simple society and people following societal norms. It's as common as today I go outside and I see my neighbor, he gets into his car and drives to work. A lot of people do that. It's something as simple as that. Back then, it's what society was doing. Of course, now we know better. Slavery is wrong, but that's how it was back then. They were just following societal norms. Who wants to be the odd man out? Nobody. So they're fighting over taxes, not slavery. And I'm not going to deny that there were a few bad apples in the southern states who were like, I have hundreds of thousands of dollars invested in my plantation and my slaves, who are technically my property, which is obviously now pretty fucked up. But I'm sure there were a few who, thought that way. There were a lot. But the war was over taxes. And it was only to the end of the war where Lincoln said, and by the way, Lincoln wasn't even thinking about the slaves when he and the South kind of kicked off their little war. Lincoln wasn't even thinking about the slaves, well-being or anything. He just thought, this is over taxes. He never thought, oh, this is over slaves. Until the very end. Because the North was losing at one point. And Lincoln said, let's use the increased quantity of slaves in the South as propaganda against the South. So they did, and a lot of people in the North decided to fight even more and push themselves even more because they saw this new issue brought to light, and they overpowered the South, and the South lost. And if you're wondering, oh, but, Lincoln freed the slaves. No, he didn't. That ugly son of a bitch was sitting up in the fucking White House, not even giving a shit. Who really freed the slaves? I'm going to tell you who. Jefferson Davis, the President of the Confederate States of America, and Robert E. Lee, General Lee. General Lee said, it's time to end this stupid war, because there was a battle coming up that would have cost about 20,000 lives on each side. So he sat down at Appomattox with Ulysses S. Grant, however you say that name, and they talked it out, and the peace treaty, whatever the fuck it's called, was signed, and the war was ended. And now Jefferson Davis didn't like this. Jefferson Davis, who was technically the president of the Confederate States, said, how dare my head general, rescind an order of the president of the Confederate States of America? And somebody had told Jefferson Davis, well, it's because Robert E. Lee was sick of people getting killed. At that point, Jefferson Davis said, well, it's over. I guess I'll free the slaves. And yes, believe it or not, social justice warriors, it was a Confederate white man, not some half-black looking northern 6'4" dumbass president, who freed the slaves. It was a white man in the South who freed the slaves. Okay? The South did. Not your hero of Abe Lincoln. So, that's exactly how the Civil War went. Alright? Now about the Confederate flag. It's not racist. What that is, it's a battle flag. It's not a Nazi flag which stands for, ethnic cleansing and all that kind of crap. It's a flag of battle that stands for people. Nothing but poor farmers and Southerners standing up against a corrupt government. That flag has different colors which stand for different things. The red in the flag stands for the blood of Christ. The white in the flag, the white border of the flag, stands for the protection of God. The 13 stars in it stand for the 13 states of Confederacy, which, like I said, stood up against taxes, not slavery. Really, I think, we know better now, but I don't think, it should have never been an issue back then. Really, I mean, how dare, somebody halfway across the country try and, end the economy of another part of the country? Like, that's fucked. Okay, they were using slaves. That was bad, but like I said, back then it was different. That was their whole economy. There should have been another way to do it, rather than essentially telling them, fuck you, you guys are going to have to give it all up. It should have been done over time slowly, so that the plantation owners and farmers who had slaves could free the slaves and not lose a significant amount of income. Then there's some blue in the flag. I'm actually not sure what the blue stands for. But all in all, that flag is mostly... it's the X shape in the flag is actually a cross on its side. That stands for Jesus Christ, obviously. And that flag is obviously, clearly, a flag of God. A flag of God's protection over a poor, tired people who are fighting against a tyrannical government. So when you see somebody with a Confederate flag, they're not racist. I mean, sadly, some idiots like the Ku Klux Klan do use the Confederate flag for, white power and all that. But really, it's not racist. It's a sign, like I said, of a poor, tired, hungry people standing up against a much larger, much more wealthier and well-equipped army who intended to end them. So there's my little rant for today. I hope you enjoyed, and I don't want to hear any social justice warriors on my channel complaining about, oh, how I'm apparently wrong. I got some news for those types of people. One, Obama's a dirty Muslim asshole who was giving money to the Middle East just so the Middle East could blow us up. He doesn't give a fuck about Americans, and he was trying to fuck you over every minute he was in office. Alright? And also, Trump wins, Trump's awesome, and he's here to stay. Thank you for watching.